about me. And then I wrote that book in 98. I didn't want to write the book. I tell people at that time, when I wrote Coming Clean, there was the big snitch wasn't around. Google, so you couldn't find out. So my whole thing is I just finished my PhD. I'm one of 5 Hispanics in the country. I got named one of the Hispanic doctoral students in America 2 years in a row by the Pew Foundation. And I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to go off and teach somewhere. No one's going to know who I was. I'm going to have a bunch of pretty girls begging me for a grade, and that's going to be a wonderful life for me. But then I had a wife that kept threatening me that if I did not do this or do that or do that, she would tell my kids. And then one day I said, I'm tired. I'm tired of living with that hidden secret, You're always trying to find, you're always wondering who's going to find out, right? Who's going to know somebody that knew you? And all of a sudden, this facade that you live in is, boom, it's gone. So I said, shit, screw it. I'm going to write it. I'm going to tell my kids who I was. And then wrote the book. They told me I would do 5 interviews, 3 or 4 book signings. I ended up doing 350 interviews. So I was like all over the place. Well, I didn't want to live off my story. I got a huge advance from Random House. You written books. I got $150,000 advance, and all I wrote was a sheet of paper what my story was about. And I was offered millions, $1 million by another big publishing house. But my agent told me, look, if you go with that other publishing house, they're going to ask you to write the book, the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll. So what you need to do is identify who your audience is. So that's what he says to me. Who are you writing this book for? I said, well, number one, I'm writing it for my kids. I want them to know who their father was. I don't want 30 years down the road, someone saying, hey, do you know your father was a drug dealer, was in jail for 10 years? I mean, when would we have imagined that there would be a Google that you can just sit down and find out everything about every human being, right? It was a better world back then. So I said, so he says to me, if you write the book, your children will say, wow, what a powerful man my father was. If you write the Random House book that they want you to write, they will find out what a great God you served that changed your father. So I decided that. And I went with that. And I donated every penny of it. I never kept $1. It was a great experience because Random House, you can imagine a book like that, all their lawyers, it took them 1.5 years to verify everything you can ever imagine. I mean, they talked to every human being that ever existed, starting with every government agent that followed me, every prosecutor, every judge, et cetera, et cetera. So I gave that away because I didn't want to live off that story and I just wanted to teach. So, but I wrote the book and I'm like, when I get my salary, I had a big salary because, there's not that many Hispanics, 5 in the whole country when I graduated with a PhD. And I looked at my salary, I'm like, shit, how am I going to put 6 kids through college with this? Unless they decide to go where I teach. So, and then my dad died and I wanted to be a full-time dad. I was missing him tremendously. My father was my hero, my best friend. He left Cuba, multimillionaire, and came to the United States to clean toilets at a department store. Never complained, never took government help. He said, if you take money from the government because you're poor, and if you're poor, you're going to stay poor all your life. He said, you work your work. He said, we're not poor, we don't have money. So you work your way out of our present financial situation by getting up early in the morning and working harder. Now, I was 10 years old, weighed 75 pounds. I've been doing that. I've been getting up at 4:30 ever since. I can't go back. I can't sleep in it, no matter how bad I want to. So I went, I'm thinking like, man, why am I missing my dad so much? He died a month before my wedding. And I realized he couldn't give me nothing because he didn't have nothing to give, but he gave me his presence and he was there in my life. And I decided to abandon my career and move to Georgia so I can be a full-time dad to 3 little kids. And I started a company from scratch in the basement of our house, and we built it in 10 years. I built it into a multi-million-dollar company. And then, so I was writing the book at the same time that I was building the company, and then I walked away from writing the book. I mean, from that world, I don't want to be speaking. I was doing some of the biggest events in America. I didn't want to do any of that. and just taking my time to my company because at the same time, it was a different world, right? It's sad now when kids find out in school who my kids' parents are, father was, they're heroes. But back then, people wouldn't let their kids play with my kids. You know, no matter that I become a Christian, no matter that I walked away on my own in 1987. It wasn't that I got caught in there. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. Bullshit. No, I walked away from making $1 million for doing nothing. I hadn't seen cocaine in 6 years, and started a company. And robbing Peter paid Paul. But you know, we worked hard. And then in 2010, I sold it. And when I sold it, I decided I wanted to move to Mexico because you know what they call people that are bilingual, right? Speak two language, monolingual Americans. They only speak one language. And I wanted my kids to learn a different culture. My wife and I were both grew up poor, and sadly, my children were not living poor. You know, we built a company. We had private jet. We had yachts, and it wasn't a real world that I wanted my kids to know. I wanted them to see people that were missing meals every day and still had faith and different culture. Because it was easy to be a Christian in white suburbia America, but step out and then see, you know, when you pray, and then nothing happens in your life. Do you still believe in God or not? So last year, when my daughter now is getting ready to go to college this year, I said, okay, my youngest daughter, I'm like, let's give this a shot again. And let's try to make a difference in the world. I've been sending books to prison for a long, long time, my book. And this year alone, we've sent over 17,500 books.
Well done, man. Thanks.
And they said that 10 inmates, you've been in prison, you know, when a book comes in, you know how hard it is to get a book there. Everybody's
It's like gold. Mail and books are gold.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's a gangster book, right?
Yeah.
So I did a short version of the book because I wanted to also take out some of the tempting scenes in the book. So I called it Narco Mindset Freedom Edition, which I give it to people when they join my website and they sign into our community. It sends them a free PDF. And they said 10 people. So just this year alone, maybe 108,000 people read the book. And you know, and my mission, Shaun, is not to convert anyone. I tell people, you know, in life, I'm not about, I don't give a damn what anybody is, man. I respect everybody. I don't respect people because of their religion or, sorry about that, or any of that. I respect people when they're people of integrity and honor, you know? And when you tell the truth, you're not afraid to tell it, you know? So I thought, I don't care if they're Buddhist, if they worship plants or rocks or whatever. I don't care if they're straight, gay, trisexual, quintessential, whatever anybody is. All I tell people is, look, all I'm going to tell you is a simple story. How the love of a Jewish carpenter transformed my heart. That's it. That's it. If the shoe fits, wear it. If not, buy another pair of shoes, you know? And it's my story. It's not a story. I'm not like those TV preachers. Oh, accept Jesus and you'll become rich, or accept Jesus and, you know, you're going to go to heaven, or none of that, you know. And everything I've done with my foundation, never, ever asked for a dollar, never raised a dollar from anybody. We built the first and only Catholic chapel inside any U.S. prison at Angola in Louisiana, you know, deadliest prison in the history of America. And we did that with our own money, not asking people to donate. And me and another partner did it. And, you know, I tell people, look, what we do it with our own funds. I don't believe in, you know, begging for money and raising money. You know, I live a nice, comfortable life. Nothing compared. I live like a pauper compared to how I used to live, but I'm happy, man. I'm 64. I'm never thought I'd get past 24. So it's been a good ride. And here I am with you, meeting you.
Well, congratulations on turning your life around and getting your priorities so worthy. And I have so many questions then. Watched the Vlad TV interview with you. Now, you were bringing in up to 700 kilos at a time of coke in the 1970s, before Escobar was a big player. This Escobar back then was in under the contraband kingpin in the Marlboro Wars. But my question for you is, the dominant, most famous person as terms of the media in Florida, especially for the Dadeland, the shootout, is Griselda Blanco. Did you have any dealings with her?
Not at all. Not at all. Because, and she was very, very powerful. But again, a lot of her notoriety came because she killed her husbands and she killed everybody. I mean, the bottom line is, think about this. She goes to jail for what? 22 years she did? Comes out, goes to Colombia. By then, most of the people she dealt with were all dead, right? And what happens? She gets killed immediately, which tells you that her the damage she caused went beyond just the people forget that people have families, you know, and that what you do is going to come around you. And I didn't, because when I started, and I think that she started to get a lot of notoriety in 1980, if my numbers are correct. I went to prison in April of 79. When I started, my God, our first stash house was right across the police station in Miami, and I'm fighting half of the time with the freaking cops to move the cars out of my driveway so I can get the coke in a garbage bag, in a 55-gallon garbage bag, in a convertible to take it somewhere. So that's how they were after the marijuana really bad, you know? So they had no idea that cocaine came into the picture. So I did not know her. She was very, very, very powerful. You know, I don't know if she brought in as much as people allege that she brought in, but she did kill as many people as people say that she killed, and probably more. And that's what at the end of the day is what ends up giving you a lot of, fame. So no, I did not know her. Pablo, he was working, it was interesting because I don't know if it was in your book or somewhere else. The king of Canton was a guy named Fabio Restrepo, right? So recently I talked to Manuel, which, by the way, he's 93 years old and looks better than me, and lived in the same house all his life. And the reason is because he did not ever participate in these murders or anything like that. But we were there was a very famous cockfight in Medellin, of cockfight owned by Julio Orozco. She was like one of the first pioneers, again, bringing 10, 20 kilos. And we were with him that night. And my memory was he left that night to go to Bogota, because we spent the whole night talking to him. And in the middle of the night, in a storm, he crashed and his plane and killed himself. But there's all kinds of versions out there, who knows which that's, again, because we're talking about now, Shaun, man, I'm 64, I was 76, I was 20. So that's 44 years ago. So, and conveniently, I've forgotten a lot of stuff.
So we communicated by email, and you revealed that you've read my War on Drugs series of books. And when I tell people that the black market in drugs created by drug laws gets bigger every year, it's corrupted governments all over the world, they arrest the small people to show they are fighting the war on drugs while running or taking payments from the traffickers behind the scenes, because there's just so much money, and the whole war on drugs is a charade. Now, if anyone can verify that, because you've dealt with top government officials across the world, General Noriega would be a good example.
Sure.
How does it work at that level with those governments?
And here's the thing, that's how I came across your books, because I wanted to talk about the war on drugs, right? Because I worked a lot with youth. And I say, cocaine is less than 15% of the drug overdose in America. Less than 15%. Senator Cotton recently, remember when those American family was killed in Juarez and by the drug lords. Well, it was very suspicious to me, right? Because knowing the inner circle and the inner world, drug dealers kill drug dealers. Now, there's bystanders around innocently, but drug dealers just don't go target a family for the hell of targeting a family, right? So that's number one. So there was a lot of things going on, but what pissed me off was when Senator Cotton made the comment that why don't we just send in the special forces and just wipe them out? And I laughed. As a result of that statement, thank God I started reading all your books because I found you, and I'll get to that. And I wrote to him, I said, why don't you quit lying to the world? So let me ask you this, Senator. Are you going to then, how many towns in Mexico are you going to invade to kill drug dealers? You're not going to eliminate the cartel. Then are you going to go to Mexico? Then are you going to go, Colombia? Are you going to go to Peru? Are you going to go to Guatemala? Are you going to go all over Latin America with your Marines, wiping them out, right? All these cartels, by the time you get, just in Mexico, by the time you kill one in Sinaloa and go to another town, there's a new boss in Sinaloa already. So, and then I ended up by saying, and then logically I would assume that you're going to go to Big Pharma and lock their ass up because they're 65% the reason of all this drug overdose. So I started to do some research, and then I found your books and I found your writings about the war on drugs. And I'm like, this is the first person that I really agree 100% on what he's saying about this. It's a big money deal. We spend billions, it's like freaking insanity, man. What is insanity? Do the same shit over and over again and expect different results. Well, that's what we have with this war on drugs. Listen, when it costs $1 billion, I'll give you a little example. Do you think, so everybody knows somebody, right? Everybody has a friend, a close friend, that has a close friend. And somewhere on the lineage is someone in position of power in law enforcement. Now, by no means am I saying that all law enforcement is crooked, nothing like that, right? We know that. We know that there's a lot of good people that risk their life because they believe what they're doing. But take Border Patrol in the United States. So a lot of those guys live right next to the border community or in the border community, right? The agents. So you mean to tell me that if somebody comes up, Shaun Attwood is a Border Patrol agent, and I come up to him and say, hey, Shaun, you're making barely surviving because they don't make crap, and I'm going to give you $20,000. And this is all you got to do. I don't want you to tell me anything. All I want you to do is a certain truck is going to come by and just don't look at it too hard. You mean to tell me they're not going to take it? Money corrupts, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I saw it. I saw it firsthand. Local law enforcement. We're buying sheriffs that were receiving the airplane, putting the money in their trunk and escorting it to Miami. When we knew, you remember, I don't know if you remember, if you covered, there was a time when the balloons were going on. The United States had this radar system of balloons. Well, the balloons are, like two eccentric circles, right? But they can't touch each other. So between there is what we called the alleyway, right? Well, the way to control the alleyway is you just shift the balloons, right? So then the alleyway shifted. Well, I don't know, less than 10 minutes after it was shifted, we knew the new coordinates. So, yeah, you buy a lot of people. Why? Common sense. Here's what gets me, and this is what I'm talking about. You and I bring up all this notion about reality. First and foremost, the billions of dollars they're spending is my tax dollar. Number one. So you mean we have shitty healthcare in America, but we can spend billions of dollars on some bullshit that over 20 years has, if any company does something for 2 years, it doesn't work, they go bankrupt. But the American government doesn't because idiots elect idiots, right? No politician gets out there, Shaun, and says, I am your senator, I am your congressman, right? So I tell people the most important thing we need to do is vote and get them vote their ass out of there when we realize some of these people have been there for years. And what has changed? Absolutely nothing. Nothing has changed.